Good day and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at some of my top tips on how to improve your gameplay experience and just your experience in general in the War Within. All of these tips I feel help you a lot in terms of the gameplay, sometimes small, sometimes big, but I think they all make an impact on how you enjoy the game. So let's take a look. I'm going to try and keep them in sections, but they're not ranked or anything, so we just start with number 1 and go from there. So the first one is probably one of the ones that's most important, especially if you are someone that is running delves. So let's say you are tired of having to deal with the water breathing mechanic. Well, don't worry, because all you have to do is go to the auction house, and all you have to do is look for water breathing potions, and that's it. You can literally buy water breathing potions very easy on the auction house as well. You can also create them. They are actually relatively cheap, all things considered, and yeah, pretty straightforward and simple. So definitely go and grab these. They make your life a lot easier when you are running those delves. Speaking of delves, let's move on to number 2. Now number 2 is more of a progressionary tip and just advice. How delving works is pretty simple. Bountiful delves, which are the ones that have the green doorways, are delves that you will get loot for based on the tier that you do. Normal delves, which are all the other ones, will only ever give you 554 gear. So even if you run Earthcore Mines on tier 8, it will only give you 554. So by definition, you want to save all your keys for bountiful delves, which is fine, and ideally level 8. However, let's say you are ranking up your character. Firstly, you want to progress all tiers before tier 8 without using a bountiful key preferably. Use LFR and other things to gear up. Secondly as well, even if you clear normal tier delves at level 8, you still have them count towards your overall weekly chest. So let's say you've used your bountiful keys for the week. Maybe you're only doing a 6 or a 7, you got your gear, now you feel like you could do an 8, you can still go do 2 8s, 3 8s, 4 8s, and grab yourselves your weekly tier bonus, which is very helpful. Water breathing isn't the only thing that is useful in delves, and prep for delves can really help. Firstly, let's talk consumables, like a raid, food and drink, always super duper helpful. Elixirs, always super duper helpful, especially like anything that will give you invisibility. So invisibility potions, very useful, especially when navigating yourself around, the space. So very, very, very helpful, essentially allowing you to, move around easily. Cave Dealer's Delight. You'll get these actually by completing delves, but these are a great healing potion. There's tons of really awesome stuff that just having helps a ton, especially invisibility, like super duper helpful. Flasks and files, those buffs, obviously as always, something that players should really look at doing. Those increases really, really good. And yeah, just in general, like anything you can use to your advantage is going to be helpful, in the same way it would for a raid. Delves are very closely attuned to item level, so these actually really help you in terms of overall performance. Leveling Brann is one of the key components to improving your delve experience, and you get a lot of EXP for Brann by completing bountiful delves. You can see here I got 45,000 for clearing this bountiful tier 8. But not only do you get EXP from completing the tier 8, but every time you redo a bountiful delve, with the availability of it being bountiful, you will be able to reclaim EXP from the treasures. But this isn't all, because Brann's account wide, doing bountiful delves on other characters will also add EXP to him, and on top of that as well, initial normal clears with those characters will also count towards his EXP. So it's a really, really, really good way of grinding his EXP. Now there is a weekly cap that will prevent you from kind of going overboard, but getting Brann up a few extra levels because you're farming him on multiple ults could be very helpful. Not only does running Brann and running bountifuls on multiple ults help level Brann, but it also gives you more chance of obtaining upgrades for Brann's actual idols, which give him a significant increase in his overall performance. So definitely something I suggest you take a look at. This one is also kind of a gear based one. So this specifically talks about claiming your weekly quest. You will get a weekly quest and a whole bunch of weekly caches that will fill up and gather up a whole bunch of materials for you. These are great in a sense that they can drop loot for you, especially your weekly chest, which generally speaking, depending on the week, if it is a raid week, time walking week, etc., will give you anywhere ranging from a normal to a heroic piece of gear. And for a lot of players, especially casual players, this is a very decent item level piece of loot. It'll be 603, sometimes it could even be 610, 613. So what you want to do is you want to claim that chest as quickly as possible. Claim that chest before opening your weekly vault. So your weekly vault will reset on Wednesdays, the exact same time that weekly quest will become available. Finish that weekly quest, claim your weekly reward, which is completely randomized, and then come and claim your piece of loot. The reason you want to do this is because the random piece of loot, let's say for example, rolls into chest. Now if you come here, and let's say you get a chest here, but you get legs here, you'll go for the legs then. Whereas if you came here first, taken the chest, then you rolled the chest, you would have missed out on potentially 2 gear upgrades. It's a small tip, but it's something that can actually help you save a lot of pain in the long run. The next one is going to be with story mode. So doing story mode and enabling yourself to defeat Queen Ansurek is super important because it gives you this enchanted ruin crest, plus a whole bunch of void touch valor stones, and obviously some reputation. But doing it is super important because it gives you that, and then you can go and create a really good piece of gear through the crafting order system. Once you have finished story mode, which by the way you can basically just walk away from your computer and the NPCs will finish it for you, you'll get your spark, or you'll get your enchanted rune harbinger crest, and then you will need to create a spark of omen. This you should get from your fractured sparks of omen. And then you have 2 choices. You can either go for a work order, whether it's public or not, for certain armor and gear, or alternatively, you can craft it yourself, depending on if you are someone that's got viable crafting. So it's pretty much up to you. Honestly speaking, for me personally, I would say if you can craft it yourself, as you know, workplace orders don't generally speaking have like set quality, but at the same time, it's up to you. It's still a great piece of gear regardless. So one of the last tips is in terms of sparks or fragments of sparks. So we all know that characters are tied to a cap of gaining sparks per week. So each week your character is tied to only gaining 2 more additional sparks, provided they've been gaining them every week. However, if you are on an ult, for example, like this character who's never earned any sparks, fragments of sparks, then this character can earn them basically more than twice a week. So there's a catch-up mechanic for ults to gain those sparks. Now obviously, it's not from everything you do, but generally all your weekly cache sources will count. So adventures, caches, weekly events, area events, world bosses, weekly quests, etc. will all count and are all super beneficial for you to catch up on those fragments. So next we're going to talk about a little secret that you need to be aware of. So when you come to the Harbinger Crest exchange, you will notice that in the beginning you only have the ability to downgrade your crests. For example, I can take carved to weathered, I can take ruined to carved, and I can take gilded to ruined. However, if you upgrade your gear to the point where you no longer need a certain type. So say for example I no longer need carved, then that vendor will upgrade with the ability to essentially take my weathered and turn them into carved, which is absolutely huge, of course, for the vast majority of players. Now, it does require all of your gear to meet that requirement, so you'll notice, for example, my belt is currently holding this character back, but it's very important to note, and it means that you're going to want to probably replace your gear tracks as quickly as possible to start getting that option. When you do unlock the ability to upgrade, you will see this little pop-up here, Harbinger of the Weathered pop-up, etc, etc, and it's a feeder strength that basically unlocks the ability to trade upwards. So once you see that pop, you know that you've hit the requirement, and then you can look at crafting upwards. So the ratio is a little bit different, so you can see here, weathered to craft, we need 90, but it does allow us to pick up great rewards. So let's talk about Snuffling. Now, Snuffling is an activity basically whereby you collect gobs of wax by interacting with disturbed earth throughout Kathalgar. Every region has these little purple spikes here, but players can sometimes struggle to see them. There's a setting in your graphics that you can change which will actively allow you to actually have a better ability to see them. If you go to graphics, go down to graphics detail, and you switch your outline mode to disabled and click apply, you will notice that it disappears, starts to shine. If you go to options, graphics, and change your outline mode to good, then it will shine a little bit more. And then if you go to options, graphics, outline mode, and switch it to high, then it shines the most. It's a small tip, but honestly, if you especially are struggling with finding these snuffling points, it's a tip that helps a ton with isolating them. And I think, because it's an individual graphic setting, you can change it itself. You will get even higher settings if you boost your graphics up. So maybe you play on low graphics like me, just because you don't like the way that the raids work and everything. Boost your graphics a little bit to aid in your snuffling adventure. The next one comes from fishing. So it's just a small tip, but training in fishing is great. But if you speak to the fishing supply vendor next to the fishing trainer, you'll find this angler's guide. You can click it and then teach it to yourself. And what it will do is it will enable the option for fishing pools to appear on your mini map. So it's just a very small thing, but essentially it helps you if you are, a fisher or looking to get into fishing, as it basically enables you to have a whole bunch of fishing pools pop up on your map. So you can see how, for example, that little fish sign here appears, and this just allows me to see now that the fishing pool is available and I can come fish. So cool stuff. One last bonus tip, and that is for faction choice from the Severed Threads. So it's very important to understand two things. While your pact for the week is active, you will receive, so whichever pact you choose, whether you finish the objective or not, you will receive that pact's buff for the week. And two of the factions have very, very usable buffs. So for standard players, for people who are looking to just farm Kedge, the currency, you're going to want to make a pact with the Vizier and raise them, but generally speaking make a pact with them because you will get the Vizier's Savvy, which will give you a boost to your Kedge, all the way up to 20%, which is really, really good. For players who are crafters and gatherers, you're going to want to focus on the Eye of the Weaver. They give you a big 30% crafting and gathering speed increase, which you can have every single week. So that is huge for players that are looking to craft and gather. One thing that's super important for crafting orders, and it's just something that I think a lot of players maybe don't know, is the Ogari Treatsy. So especially if it comes to crafting, Basically, there is a special item called a treatise, and you can only use this once per week, but you can get it crafted for every single one of your professions. And it only gives you one knowledge, but it's a weekly cooldown, and it's a great way to stock up on knowledge. What you have to do is provide the materials. You can provide a very cheap public order fee. Inscription providers can make them, and it's very, very simple to use, and I highly suggest doing it. But anyway, that's it. Those are my tips. I hope you found them helpful in regards to improving your War Within experience, and let me know if you have any others that you'd like to leave any comments down below. But yeah, that's it from me. Bye.